There's a quiet moment most men never notice. A shift so small, it feels like nothing, yet it changes everything. When she no longer smiles because she's drawn to you, but because she's trying to understand how she ever lost control of the man who no longer explains himself, no longer chases, and no longer softens his truth to fit her comfort. At first, nothing looks different. You still text, you still show up, you still sit across from her and listen. But the energy between you has changed. It used to bend, now it doesn't. She can sense it, even if she can't name it. There's something in you that no longer waits for her approval. You're not cold, you're just clear. And that clarity unsettles her. She never feared you when you were guessing. She feared nothing when you were the one trying to keep things easy, light, agreeable. But now you're still. Now you're steady. Now you speak like a man who no longer needs to be liked. And that's what shakes her. Sartre said that man is condemned to be free, not chosen to be free, condemned. Because freedom, real freedom, comes with no instructions. You don't become authentic by finding yourself. You become authentic by realizing no one else can define you. And when a man finally understands that, he becomes someone a woman can no longer mold. You don't have to shout, you don't have to argue, you just don't fold. And the moment she realizes you won't fold, she starts to feel something she never expected from you. Distance. It's not physical distance, you're still present, but something in your eyes no longer reflects her expectations. Something in your silence no longer apologizes for existing as you are. And in that stillness, she meets a part of you she never prepared for. The part that doesn't ask to be understood. People say women want confident men, but most aren't prepared for what real confidence looks like. It's not in words, it's not in charm, it's not even in success. It's in the way a man stands in the room without asking for permission to be there. It's in the way he stays rooted when everything around him tries to shape him. She doesn't fear you because you're cruel. She fears you because you stopped being a reflection of her fantasy. You stopped performing. And now she has to face the possibility that the man sitting in front of her won't become the one she imagined. Sartre warned that people live in bad faith when they deny their own freedom and wear roles instead of taking responsibility. Most men play the role because it feels safer, it feels romantic, it feels noble. But the authentic man steps out of the role. And when he does, she doesn't see him as more loving. She sees him as unfamiliar. And that unfamiliarity, that refusal to be controlled, redirected, or softened, is what she truly fears. You sit across from her, and she smiles at something that isn't you. It takes you time to realize it. Her eyes are on you, her body leans in, but there's a distance in the room you can't close. You talk, you laugh, you share your thoughts, but none of it really lands. Because she isn't listening to the man in front of her. She's listening to the idea she brought with her. This is where most men start to bend. They sense it. They feel the gap. And instead of holding their ground, they start reaching across. They soften their voice. They adjust their opinions. They mirror what she wants to hear. They become the character she already had in mind. Not because they're weak, but because they're afraid that if they don't, they'll be left behind. Sartre called it bad faith. It's when a person denies their freedom by pretending they are only what someone else expects. It's when a man tells himself, this is just what relationships require, while killing off the parts of him that don't fit the script. She doesn't need to tell you to change. You do it before she asks. You become agreeable, predictable, safe. You say yes to things you don't believe. You laugh at things you don't find funny. You withhold truths you used to stand on, all so you can stay close, all so you don't lose her. But what you lose is worse. You lose your edge. You lose your clarity. You lose the very tension that made her look at you in the first place. The moment you start performing, she doesn't see you more clearly. She sees you less. Because now, there's no mystery, no depth, no resistance, just a mask. And the tragedy is, she never asked for the mask directly. But when you gave it to her, she accepted it. Not because she wanted the illusion, but because it made her feel powerful. For a moment, you became manageable. And that's when the respect begins to die. She may still say she loves you. She may still reach for you in bed. But deep down, something cold starts to form. A quiet loss of trust. Because she senses you've made a trade. You gave up your truth for her comfort. And no matter how kind you are, how loyal, how present, she will feel it, and she will fear it. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're gone. This is what Sartre warned about. When you abandon yourself to play a role, you think you're choosing love, but you're avoiding freedom. And freedom, though terrifying, is the only thing that makes you real. The man who lives in bad faith may keep the woman for a while, but he loses something deeper, the ability to recognize himself when he's alone. And when she sees that, even if she stays, she never looks at him the same way again. You wake up one day and stop pretending. You stop trying to be interesting. You stop trying to be impressive. You say what you think, even when it lands wrong. You hold your silence when it isn't owed. You no longer ask yourself, will this make her like me? You ask, is this what I believe? And that's when everything changes. She doesn't react the way you hoped. She doesn't lean in. She pulls back. Her face doesn't glow with appreciation. It tightens. She doesn't say it, but her expression does. This isn't the version she signed up for. Because the moment you became real, you stopped being hers. Not because you left, but because you stopped being someone she could shape. Sartre believed people fear freedom because it forces them to take responsibility. Most choose the script instead. The script tells them who they're supposed to be, how to behave, what to expect from others. But when one person steps outside that script, it threatens everyone still playing along. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't betray her. You just told the truth. And the truth didn't flatter her. It didn't reassure her. It didn't serve her image of the relationship. It just stood there, unfiltered, unmoved, alive. She calls you distant now. Cold, hard to read. But what she's really saying is that you're no longer predictable, and that makes her feel unsafe. There's no more performance, no more adjusting. You speak from a place she can't edit. You show her a version of you she didn't create. And that's when her behavior starts to change. She might test you, pick at you, say things she never said before. She's not angry. She's trying to find the edge of your new self. She wants to know if it's real or just another mask with better posture. The authentic man doesn't fight. He doesn't beg. He doesn't shrink. He stays still. He listens. He answers clearly. And he doesn't offer more than what's true. That's what scares her. It's not your strength. It's not your boundaries. It's the fact that you no longer ask for permission to be who you are. You become a mirror, not the kind that flatters, the kind that shows things as they are. And very few people can look into that without turning away. Sartre called it anguish, the raw awareness that your choices belong to you alone, and no one can save you from them. That same anguish shows up in her eyes when she realizes she can't manage your identity anymore. She can't rely on your need for her to shape who you are. You used to be convenient. Now you're free. And freedom, to someone who still lives by a script, feels like chaos. She tells you she just wants honesty. She says she values openness, transparency, real connection. But when you give it to her, not in anger, not in drama, just calmly and without decoration, she stiffens. She says something's off, that you've changed, that you feel distant. But you haven't pulled away. You've just stopped performing. What she misses isn't your affection. It's the version of you that filtered every word through her expectations. The version that apologized before speaking. The version that asked her what kind of man she needed and tried to become that. Now, you're not cruel. You're not selfish. You're simply present without apology. And that changes everything. Sartre warned that most love is built on control, not through force, but through quiet pressure. The need to be needed, the fear of not being chosen, the slow erosion of one's identity to maintain peace. This kind of love wears a soft mask. It smiles, it nurtures, but underneath, it wants to own you. She never said it aloud, but part of her depended on the idea that you were still shaping yourself to fit her frame. The moment you stopped, not with rage, but with silence, she felt something fall away. The illusion of control. You used to ask for permission in small ways. You used to explain your thoughts, soften your views, downplay your instincts. It wasn't conscious. It felt like respect, like harmony, but it was control. Mutual, subtle, and exhausting. Now, you simply speak. You simply decide. You don't check her face to see if your opinion will land well. You don't smooth your truth to keep things warm. You don't offer your soul like it's up for debate. And that's when her discomfort begins. She might call you emotionally unavailable. She might say she doesn't feel safe. But the truth is simpler. She doesn't fear your detachment. She fears your independence. Because that kind of man is unshaped, unmoved, untethered to her approval. Sartre said that love, when based on possession, becomes a trap. You don't love the person. You love the role they play in your life. And when that person stops playing the role, you feel betrayed, even if they've done nothing wrong. That's what happens here. You didn't change the rules. You just stopped following ones that were never yours. She might not even realize what she's doing. Most don't. But the signs are clear. Small emotional punishments. Withholding affection. Subtle shaming. Each one a test. Will you bend back? You don't. Not to prove a point, not to win, but because something in you no longer wants to be tolerated in pieces. You'd rather be alone than be half alive. And she feels it. Not as distance, but as strength. She knows now, you're not here to be molded. You're here to be met. And if she can't meet you as you are, then the mask will fall. Not from you, from her. She says she misses the old you, the softer you, the one who explained everything, the one who reached for her first. But that man wasn't you. He was a version of you built to be accepted. She misses the performance, not the person. This is the part men don't expect. They think the shift toward authenticity will bring admiration, that a woman will respect it, that she'll be drawn to the man who stands firm in his values, in his silence, in his refusal to beg. But admiration isn't the first response. Fear is. Because when you stop being manageable, you stop being safe. You become something she can't fully understand. You speak without trying to win her. You move without waiting to be followed. You become whole in a way that doesn't ask for permission. And that changes the emotional contract she never said out loud. The old contract was simple. You stay soft, you stay predictable, she stays comfortable. But you broke that, not by fighting, not by leaving, by becoming solid. And solid men don't entertain every request. They don't rush to reassure. They don't mold themselves to keep the peace. That's what Sartre meant by freedom. Not rebellion, not resistance. Just the absence of self-denial. The refusal to betray your own judgment in order to make others feel better. And that's what burns her script. She may not say it, but she'll show it. The compliments come less often. The affection cools. The light tone fades. In its place, subtle friction. She doesn't know why you feel so different. You haven't changed your schedule. You haven't raised your voice. You've just stopped hiding the parts of yourself that don't seek approval. And those parts, the ones that hold still, that don't perform, that remain calm while she spins, those are the ones that draw her in, while scaring her the most. Because they are not yours alone. They hold up a mirror. They reflect what she hasn't confronted in herself. Sartre said that freedom is frightening not because it's wrong, but because it removes excuses. It leaves us alone with our choices. And when you stand in front of her, calm, honest, and unmoved, she can't lean on your softness to avoid her own responsibility. She wanted control. You gave her honesty. She wanted safety. You gave her truth. She wanted to shape the man, but you arrived already formed. That's when the attraction shifts. It doesn't disappear. It deepens. Slowly, quietly. She starts to look at you longer. Her questions change. Her tone softens. Not because you've become easier, but because you've stopped being afraid of her reactions. You no longer ask, will this upset her? You ask, is this true? That shift rewrites everything. You've killed the performance. You've ended the game. And now, without the mask, she meets a man she can't predict. And that's what draws her in. Not because she can have you, but because she finally knows she can't control you. You don't leave in anger. You don't need to explain yourself. You just stop offering pieces of your soul in exchange for comfort. You walk differently now. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because there's nothing left to prove. She sees it. In your silence. In the way your gaze doesn't search her face for validation. You still care, but you don't chase. You still listen, but you don't adjust your truth to keep things smooth. You still feel, but your emotions are not up for negotiation. Sartre said that man must create his own meaning, and that this responsibility, this freedom, is unbearable for most. So they hide from it. They become someone else's version of a person. They follow roles, scripts, systems. They try to belong by disappearing into the group. But you no longer disappear. You no longer look at love as something to win. You don't treat her approval as a prize. You're not the man who needs to be told he's enough. You already decided that, quietly, without applause. And that's the shift she wasn't prepared for. Because now, she's looking at a man who stands still when she walks away, who speaks plainly when she tests him, who doesn't perform when things get tense. That kind of man is rare, and rare things make people uncomfortable. She may say you've become distant, that you're too much in your head, that you lack warmth. But those are just words we give to people who don't bend, who don't explain, who don't offer parts of themselves on demand. You've become untouchable, not because you push people away, but because you don't collapse when they pull. That's what Sartre meant by the authentic man. He doesn't ask to be seen. He asks himself, am I living in truth? And if the answer is yes, then he walks alone without resentment. That kind of man is not romantic. He is not charming. He is not decorated with the traits people expect. He is simple, clear, unshaped by fear. And most women have never stood that close to a man they can't define. She might miss you. She might come back. But this time she won't find the version she knew, because that version no longer exists. He was burned in silence, without ceremony. What remains is a man who doesn't just survive without her, he doesn't pretend. And that's the final fear, because it means you were never waiting to be chosen. You were never hoping to be saved. You were only waiting to become whole. And now that you are, she sees it. She sees the one thing she couldn't imagine when this began. You don't need her. You never did.